What up, kids?
Oh, we do it again.
Oh, no, we should use that one. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Angeles National Forest, a freshly repaved road. And in today's video, we are driving the new 992 Carrera T. T is for touring now. They tried to originally, back in the day, kind of say it wasn't for touring because the GT3 Touring was touring, but now it's for touring.
Yes, because it was part of the Touring Car Championship in the late 60s.
They made it explicit in the press release.
Yeah.
Yes. And the T, basically, like all of other Porsche's other Ts, is basically the smallest engine and the lightest variant with a bunch of upgraded suspension options that make it handle very well.
Yeah, it's got some of the hot rod stuff that you might get in a GTS or maybe a little bit of a GT3, but it's cheaper. It's a little bit of a tease in that way.
In this video, we will answer a couple of key questions. One, T or S?
Which to buy?
For similar money, T or S? And two, the T in the last generation was my second favorite 911 underneath the GT3 Touring. Does that hold up to this generation? And three, how should you configure your T should you elect to buy one? Hey everyone, today's video is brought to you by Dave. With the holidays right around the corner, you might be wondering how you're going to be able to make ends meet and shower your loved ones with gifts the way they deserve. And Dave is here. They can help you get out of a pinch so you can enjoy this holiday season. Dave is the banking app that could help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. With Dave, there's no interest, late fees, or credit checks. That way, there's more money to buy those last-minute gifts or catch up on bills without having to wait for your next paycheck. You can finally tackle those expenses that have been stressing you out without any hang-ups. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief that they need with extra cash. So if you're in a pinch and need some extra help, download Dave and think of it as a helping hand from future you. Download Dave today at dave.com/TST. That's dave.com/TST. Sign up for an extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve, member FDIC. And thanks to Dave for sponsoring today's video. Boilerplate items. Standard Carrera engine. That's the 3-liter twin-turbo, 379 horsepower, and 331 pound-feet, right? It weighs 3254 with the 7-speed manual gearbox, which we have, or 3338 with PDK. It's about 80 pounds heavier with the PDK. No cost option either way. The suspension geometry is a combination of GTS stuff, and then they also have the Carrera S wheels. You have rear steer, which is
as an option.
As an option. This car has it. And then you have stuff that's unavailable in the regular Carrera. For instance, regular Carrera's PDK only. So the T allows you to get a manual.
You can't get this has a mechanical diff, which you can't get in the Carrera.
This also rear steer you can't get in the Carrera. Double yellow pass happening. Double yellow pass. Minivan dive bombing into turn 1. Will they die?
They just...
Wow, that was so shady.
That was so late.
That was so shady. Oh my God. People are fucking nuts up here.
Everyone commuting from Palmdale, just really calm down. Yeah. Really calm down.
You also get the GT Sport steering wheel, PASM Sport exhaust. That's all great. Rear seat delete is standard. You get lightweight glass, which you can actually, on the windshield, you can kind of feel the thinness.
And you can hear the difference, too. And then we should say that the rear seat, if you want it, you can add it back for no cost option.
Right. The steel brakes are standard. Identical front and rear, interestingly enough. Same rotors, same calipers. There's no stagger to the brakes, and that's because normally in a front engine car, you'd have that weight up there.
Giant brake in the
because
front.
the weight is in the back, you actually balance it out, and they're the same.
But the wheels are staggered, right? It's 20, 21.
Yeah, the wheels are staggered. Staggered width and staggered diameter, obviously. So, we are going to drive now. What I think is a little bit of a cop-out is that because in the previous generation, the regular Carrera was available with a manual, and now the Carrera is not available with a manual, a substantial amount of the weight savings of this T versus a Carrera come from the fact that you can get a manual.
Yeah.
And it's not that they haven't done other things too. They have. But the bragging weight savings really just comes from the fact that you get a lighter transmission and less so from other stuff.
Right.
And so we're going to do a launch just because we're here and why not. 0 to 60.
Sport Plus mode. Grips up really quickly. What they advertise 0 to 60 is 4.1 with the manual and 3.8 with the PDK.
I have to admit, the 0 to 60 is not that impressive. That's not really what this car is for, especially with the stick. But that's not the thing, right? No one is buying the T to drag race.
Of course not.
I will say, considering the fact that I dumped the clutch off the line and shifted pretty aggressively, the rear traction is good. You know, rear engine architecture, wide rear tires. It got great traction, but with 379 horsepower and 330 torque, even only at 3,200 pounds, it's not a dragster.
No, not at all. But it's not trying to be. I mean, you know, yes, it's a little bit of marketing speak, but the original T was meant like homologated to go racing.
Right.
And a lot of the 911s aren't dragsters. It's almost like they become dragsters as a byproduct of the technology, like the turbo and the electric cars, of course. They've just gotten really fast, but that's not what their goal is, especially with this car. It's the driver's car. I mean, this is like the canyon vehicle, really.
Right. One thing that I do love about this car is once you're going, if you go from auto blip, I put in Sport Plus, it put auto blip on. We'll go back to Sport, auto blip off, chassis normal, good on the right?
Mm-hmm. Good.
Once you're going, when you're going from over 30 or 40 miles an hour and you're coming out of a corner, you're diving into the next corner, you're carrying speed through a bend, that's when it feels fast. That's when you go, well, okay, this is not a dragster, but for a car with only 379 horsepower, this thing really boogies. And that's where low weight chassis, weight distribution, and a lack of drivetrain loss really come into play. This feels like probably the quickest sub 400 horsepower car I've driven.
Well, because this feels more like a momentum vehicle than a drag racing vehicle.
Right.
So some of the cars that might be around 400 have a really strong pull, you know, forward and backward, but this with the low weight, and this has all that grip hardware with PASM, with the differential, with the big tires, sticky tires. It becomes like a car that has way more grip and agility than it does horsepower, which is a really fun recipe.
Right. It's really good inputs. It's got the short shifter that you get with the 911 GTS, which is not a different mechanism. They physically cut the shifter lever shorter. Not quite as good as my Boxster Spider, not quite as good as the GT3 shifter, but still, by all measures of manual shifter, very, very good. Steering feel is great. The combination of the GT wheel, the rear steer, and PASM really make this thing agile and sharp. The GT3 obviously sharper still, but the trade-off is ride quality. On all but the biggest bumps, this car rides beautifully. On the highway, on the big jerky expansion joints of the 405, it can get a little bouncy.
Well, that's also where I noticed that the reduction in sound deadening. You know, they take a lot of that out here, and they have the thinner glass. So on the highway, it was pretty noisy. I mean, we had tire noise, any of those, even like the little cracks between the seams of concrete. you know, we were hearing and feeling those. The car felt a lot stiffer down there than it did up here. It kind of like smooths the road out once you're going more quickly.
Let's do a tunnel check. We won't go all the way windows because it'll blow them out, but we'll do second gear from 3.
It sounds more Porsche inside than outside.
Yeah.
More,
you
there's more
definitely get
rasp
that
in here.
reduced sound deadening and the intake, that sound actor thing. And then when you put the windows down, you get just a hint of that turbo whistle.
Let's talk about the seats, because that's what I'm currently driving.
Right.
So these have these optional carbon buckets, fixed buckets. You know, can't change the lean at all, and they're really expensive. They're like $6,000 option. So the car comes with a 4-way seat, but you can save money on these buckets and get the 19-way adjustable, which is one of the best seats on the market at any price point. I would recommend that. Like, unless you're doing lots and lots of track days, or this is truly your weekend canyon carving vehicle, like, yes, they hold you in really well, but there's no adjustability. They're not very comfortable.
I like these seats if you get in it for 3 hours at a time once a week. Once you're in it, I like it. Mm-hmm. But what happens to me when I climb in and out of it is it pinches this little thing here pinches me. On my car,
Pronounced edge.
my GT car that I just bought and committed money and time to, I went with the comfort seats. I didn't get these. So we're putting our money where our mouth is there. Now Zach will have a go.
Does this have nose lift? I know it's an option.
It's an option, but we don't have it.
That's how you keep it light. Funny, there's so many options on the list, like, you know, hundreds and hundreds of options, but a lot of them would add a significant amount of weight and take away that, you know, one of the benefits of the T.
For the Carrera-based cars, as opposed to the Turbo or the GT3, which have the low front lip, you really don't need nose lift. This car gets over stuff just fine.
Yeah. I went to the configurator last night, and you can add all kinds of lips to the. Oh, I guess I'll go right to this thing. Like, you can actually add a big fixed wing on the back. It costs like $4,000. Like,
really?
You can do aero kits to it. Bunch of changes.
The 992 aero kit is one of the first ones that I actually think looks pretty good. I'm not a big fan of the Carrera aero kit most generations of Porsche, but I actually kind of like the one on the 992.
I like the front fascia option. The rear wing to me was a little big, but that's okay. To each their own.
I feel like I hear the reduced sound deadening more from this seat. I wonder why that is.
I think you're probably less focused on the road ahead, and you can just be passively kind of take in the information.
As a passenger, I hear it more.
All right, I'm going to go to Sport Plus just to feel the difference.
Okay. Sports Plus. Do you want auto blip on?
No.
Auto blip is off.
Although this road's more open, so there's not as much downshifting. But I do like I like the shifter engagement. I like the feel of it. It feels really good.
It's good, except as we learned first thing this morning coming up here, if you've got a cup of coffee, it's hard to operate the shifter.
Right.
A cup of coffee gets in the way of shifting a little bit.
You need a short cup.
Yes.
Your cup's rather tall. I mean, it's very quick. As you said, you don't need, we said this before on this channel, like, you don't need 500, 600 horsepower. You can go really quick and have a really good time around 4, especially for canyon stuff or smaller tracks. Like, that's the right number, because you can use full throttle, which is a really fun thing to do. If we were in a Porsche Turbo, it would be like full throttle brake, full throttle brake.
And because of the weight, the real world performance of this car is comparable to a high 400 or maybe even 500 horsepower BMW M3, you know, Supra, stuff like that. You know, this thing can really carry a lot of speed, and if you actually do out the math of the power to weight, the 400 or 500 pounds that this saves over, you know, a fast sports sedan makes a big difference.
Right. I mean, like the M2 CS, I think, was 300 or 400 pounds more than this. You know, definitely made more horsepower, but I mean, that balance of power, like, that's why that exists for racetracks, because weight matters. I really like the brakes on this thing. The only thing I noticed is for me to really heel toe across, I have to be really deep in the pedal. Like I have to be almost at full braking force to reach over. Yeah, otherwise the brake pedal is a little bit like closer to me than the gas.
I think I've got the wide foot advantage there.
Yeah, you do. And I have wide feet, but not as wide as you.
No, but I also use the 2 ENBs.
Yeah.
For driving,
That's a good point.
That's an advantage to me.
I'm in the Pilotis right now. PASM is so interesting and amazing. Like on the way up here, it felt very busy, but I was reading up on it, and when you're in sport mode for PASM, it will actually soften the suspension slightly as you go faster and faster, so that you maintain grip, so it doesn't shake over all the bumps.
I mean, that's good. I hate a chattery suspension.
Yeah.
And that's why most of the time I leave the shocks in normal mode. Roads are imperfect, and you want your suspension to suspend.
And I like the steering rack speed and the sharpness, but like I don't get a lot of lateral force feedback from the wheel. I feel like I can feel the chassis shake a bit, but I don't really feel the tire getting pressed on.
Well, this has the optional. Not just the standard GT wheel, this has the optional sport steering package, which I wish I could say I could feel the difference, but every single 992 press car I've ever driven has the sport steering package. So I have absolutely no idea what the regular one feels like.
You mean the Power Steering Plus?
Power Steering Plus.
So everything I could read about that says that all it does is adds extra assistance at low parking speeds, and like even people in the forums couldn't actually determine if it changed the feedback at higher speeds.
No, well that's interesting. I just like, because they all have it.
Yeah,
like,
you can't A/B test.
And it's only like $200. It's not like some crazy option where I can go out and say, consumer advice, save your money. Like in the context of this car, like it's nothing.
Well, the good news is it's a software update. So if you buy the car without it, you can go to the dealership and they can add it. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
funny.
That's why it's just a power assist system.
I didn't realize it was software only.
From 2. Yeah, quick, not super exciting, but very quick. All right, I'll find a place to stop.
With this car, like first and second gear are not exciting. But once you're in third and fourth, you're able to use that wide torque band to pull out of the corners like really nicely.
Yeah.
Like other stuff has to come into play.
I'm gonna find
You have picked a weird spot with no turnout.
You told me to turn right.
I like this car a lot. It's a great car, but I just wonder, I loved the last generation car so much because there's a spot right here, because it was such a good value.
Yeah, let's talk about the numbers.
And the window sticker is in your door pocket, and we can talk about that. So, and that will lead us to our questions of the day. So, base price $116,600. Nobody's getting a base car.
Right.
Doesn't happen. So this one, Python Green, $3,200. Full leather interior, $6,900. Carbon fiber roof, $3,800.
That one's worth it.
Extended range fuel tank, $230. That's a good one. Power steering plus, $280. Rear steer, $2,000. That's worth it. LED matrix headlights, $3,200. Maybe, maybe not. Exclusive design tail lights, $1,000. Probably not. Lane change assist, $1,000. Probably not. Heated steering wheel, $280. Depends on where you live. Roof lining in race text, that's Alcantara, $1,360.
Skip that one.
Take it or leave it. So this car, and then the carbon bucket seats, $5,900. So this car is $147,600. That's a lot of money.
It is a ton of money, but we should say that the last 911T started at 103.
Right.
So this jumped 15 grand. Everything when we were doing all this math had risen almost $20,000. The S and this.
And so, and previously, as we said in the beginning of the video, you could get a regular Carrera with a manual, and some of these options you could get on the regular Carrera, and now you can't anymore. So the fact that you can't get some of this stuff on a regular Carrera it kicks you up into
Right.
the T, whereas before it didn't. But with all these options on it, we're now in the realm of a pretty nicely optioned S.
Well, the S starts at what, 125.
Yeah.
So
it still leaves you $20,000 in options. So if you skip your extended leather, if you skip your 3200 for the color, right? If you skip the LED matrix
if
headlights,
you got the S with like the comfort seats and maybe a few other things, you could probably be into it for just over 130.
Yeah.
And adaptive cruise control, which is to be said, you can't get adaptive cruise if you have a manual. It only comes with PDK.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a stiff competition. It's like, are you a driving enthusiast, or are you a 911 kind of luxury GT enthusiast?
Now, getting the T does sort of signal your
For sure.
your Canyon cred, your virtue, right? It signals your Porsche virtueness. Is that a word, virtueness? That's not the right word. Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. So, bottom line, is the T the one to get still?
I think for me right now, it would be.
Yeah.
Because I look at the GTS is you want a GT3 but you don't have the money, and this is you want a GTS but you don't have the money.
Sure.
And I'm drawn to the mechanical diff and the hardware that is aimed at track and performance driving. I would get rid of a lot of these options and probably I could probably do one I'd like for like 125.
Yeah.
And that's the base S.
Yeah, I mean, now you can't get, in the previous generation, you couldn't get paint to sample, now you can, and stuff like that. I would skip the paint to sample, I'd skip the leather. I mean, why get the lightweight one only to get the leather? You know?
Totally.
I'd skip the LED lights, I'd skip paint to sample, and I'd skip the leather, and I'd skip the carbon seats.
Yep.
And now I'm at 125, and that's a value. Now I've got a sort of stripped down, bare bones, but with good mechanical bits to go fast, but still usable every day. That's where I think the value is. This one, yes, it's a press car, but it's optioned out of its own usefulness.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So I think these are very good cars. It's not quite as special in the context of the 911 range to me as the last T was. The last T was like,
well, the last one was such a great performance bargain. It's like, here's all the things you drivers want for barely over $100,000.
It was great.
Yeah, it was really good.
So, but I'm still into it. It's still a nice choice. I'm still into it. And so thank you to Porsche. They only gave us this one for 2 days because it's a launch thing. So I didn't get to live with it for a week. It's really just kind of come up here and play. So, but it has been fun. And thanks to you guys for watching, and we'll see you later.
And remember, always fight your tickets. Use code TST10 on the Off the Record app available in the Android and iOS store, or go to offtherecord.com/TST.